Hey, it's Andrew, and I'm here bringing you another Keyforge set review. This time we're going to be talking about Shadows in Age of Ascension, and why do we have key charge up there? Well, I'll get to that. But yeah, I already did the one on Mars, and I wanted to go ahead with Shadows next because I feel like their house, I think they're the next house in terms of houses I've played the most so far in AOA, and they were so strong in Call of the Archons. I mean, they're a really strong house, and I think they still are. And I actually think the Shadows in Age of Ascension is on par with Call of the Archons, especially when you factor in the bait and switch errata. So, yeah, I wanted to look at how they're different, how they've kind of stayed the same in some ways, and go through all their cards. But I have a few questions I like to walk through before I get into the cards, and those start off with if I get Shadows in the deck, what do I expect to get out of that deck? What capabilities am I hoping for? And the most obvious answer is Steal. I also expect to see a lot of Elusive. I would look for damage pings. That was true in Call the Archons, but I actually feel like it's a little stronger in Age of Ascension. In Age of Ascension, they have a lot of skirmish still, which they didn't Call the Archons as well. I'm looking for mechanics that turn my opponent's maybe strengths against them, and that has actually been pushed forward here. Obviously, Steel works that way, but there's been Snecklifter, and there's more cards like that here. I look for Forge skipping. Obviously, there's Miasma, and then the Sting does it to yourself. And then I look for, in this set especially, there seems to be a lot of cards that care how much Amber your opponent has. In Call the Archons, we had Too Much to Protect, which we still have here, and we also had Bait and Switch, but that was, I think, about it. And in this set, we have a lot more cards that care how much Amber you have, how much Amber your opponents have. It's very interesting. Shadows, there are only 4 houses that have alpha, and the other 3 have 2 alpha cards each. Shadows has 3 alpha cards. It also has the only alpha and omega card, so you're going to see a lot of alpha here more than in the other houses. And yeah, what do I hope to see next to Shadows? Well, I still think Logos is a really good house to see next to Shadows, and the main reason is that there are so many Shadows cards that pay off if you play them at the right moment, and there is some archive in Shadows, but Logos gives you an ability to really do more of that and to make sure that you can land stuff at the right moment, which is very beneficial for Shadows. My favorite combo in Shadows is, I thought about this for a little bit, and I feel bad picking 2 Call of the Archons cards, but at this point it's Too Much to Protect and Nerve Blast. Those are both cards that are coming back from Call of the Archons, and that combo is just so amazing, being able to, your opponent could be on 50 Amber, and if you can play Too Much to Protect Nerve Blast, you've stolen all but 5 of it, and probably kept them off of forging, and that's just such a strong ability in Too Much to Protect, and any other Steal 1 card, which Nerve Blast just happens to also deal 2 damage, and yeah. There are a lot of other good combos around, but most of them are just like, these are generically good cards, and really this is still like Too Much to Protect is great, and then you need a generically good Steal 1 card. If I could have a Maverick, and this is why the key charge is up here, if I could have any Maverick in Shadows, it would be key charge, and the reason is Shadows gets 2 Forge a Key out of step cards in this set, and they're both not very good, and yeah, key charge is better, so I'd rather have key charge, and having key cheating like that is so effective as Shadows, because if you get into a war with another Shadows deck, and you're stealing back and forth, or they have some other thing they can do about it, being able to get the amber from them and then use it right away is pretty powerful. And if I could have a legacy card in a deck, what would I want? I would love to have Speed Sigil. Speed Sigil is not making a return, but is just such a cool card, and it's so I love it because it also helps your opponent, and so it just makes for really interesting, swingy, fast games. And it's a very fun card. I don't know that it's the most competitive card. It can be good in certain decks, but the fact that it helps your opponent makes it really rough. But it's just a fun card. So yeah, if I could have any legacy, Richard Garfield, if you're listening, send me a Speed Sigil. All right, now let's go ahead and walk through these cards. We're starting with the commons, same as we did with the Mars set. We're going to go commons, uncommons, rares. I don't like to start with the rares. Yeah, anyway, we're going to be going through commons, then uncommons, then rares. Within each of those, we're going to be doing creature, action, artifact, upgrade. This is the same order that is followed on the new deck lists. Reminder, they've changed out 3/4 of the commons and only 40% of the rares. So we see more new cards first if we go commons first too. All right, so, but we start with an old card. We start with Bad Penny, 1 power, Human Thief, and when she's destroyed, she goes back to your hand. Now there are some good use cases for her in this set. I'm never thrilled to see Bad Penny, and discard it a lot. It's not great, but can be okay. Then we have Gamgee. My upsetness about Gamgee comes from the fact that his traits are Elf and Thief, and the only Gamgee I know of is Sam Gamgee from The Lord of the Rings, and he's a hobbit, not an elf, and he's also not a thief. So it's really confusing. Yeah, I don't know what this guy has to do with Gamgee, but maybe there's some other reference I'm just not aware of. Anyway, it's a 2-power elusive, and when it reaps, if your opponent has more amber than you, you steal one. So I mentioned we'd be seeing a lot of cards that care how much amber you and your opponent have. This is one of them. That can be a pretty good deal. You reap and you steal one. That's a good deal. It's like a built-in Dusk Runner. Next up, we have Knuckles Bolton, who's 3-power, elusive, and skirmish. There's some interesting things that could happen there. I'm not thrilled. I feel like for all the other stuff that's in Shadows, I don't need them to be going and punching stuff. So if you're going to have somebody in Shadows punching stuff, this is what you want. But I don't get stoked about it. Lemindra is very cool. So she is a 1-power elf thief with deploy and elusive, and her neighbors gain elusive. And that's a really strong effect. The deploy means you can put her anywhere in your battle line, so you don't have to deploy her on a flank. You can put her where she's going to be most useful. And if you have a powerful creature and you can give her put her next to it and give it elusive, that's a really cool effect. Now usually your opponents are going to try to find a way to kill her first and then kill that other creature. She's very easy to kill with spot damage, but nevertheless, it's a very cool effect, and I like it. Ronnie Wristclocks. I think he might be one of my favorite cards here. It's pretty obvious to compare him to Urchin from the first set. So Ronnie Wristclocks is 2-power, and when you play him, you steal 1, but if your opponent has 7 or more, you steal 2 instead. And Urchin was 1-power elusive, play, steal 1. So in the worst case scenario, you're going to get the same play effect. He's just 2-power instead of 1-power with elusive. But in the best case, you get to steal 2, and being able to take your opponent off of 7 with Ronnie is pretty cool. So I like this better than, I think this is stronger than Urchin. And Urchin was a great card. I was always happy to see an Urchin. And I'm always happy to see Ronnie. And and there's some interesting combinations that can happen here too. We haven't covered Logos yet, but you put Ronnie next to an Archimedes. You archive him when you reap with your Vizima Think Drone. There's some cool things that can happen here. All right, next we have Umbra, returning from Call of the Archons. Umbra is 2 power with Skirmish, and when it fights, it steals 1. That's pretty cool. It's a nice effect. Gets killed pretty quickly usually, but if you do get to do that, it's a nice effect. And notably, we don't have Shadow Self back in this set, so Umbra is a card that really benefited from Shadow Self because it could just keep him safe. But that's gone, so yeah, he's going to get killed a lot. Yancey Gang, this one's interesting. This is really the same, other than traits, as Pit Demon from the Call of the Archons. It's 5 power and it has an action steal 1. It's also within Shadows. This makes sense to compare to Naughty the Thief, who is 2 power elusive, action steal 1. So Yancey Gang is a little beefier, but doesn't have the elusive. So just an interesting change up there. Then we have Dusk Chronicles, which is an action. So we're out of the creatures now, and out of 16 cards, 7 of them were creatures, 17 common creatures, and then we're gonna have 9 common actions, which is pretty crazy. So start off, we have Dusk Chronicles. It has a bonus amber, and if your opponent has more amber than you draw a card. If you have more than them, you archive a card. I probably want the second ability, actually, so I'd like to be ahead on amber when I play this. But if you're behind, then maybe you get lucky and draw into something helpful. If you break even, the timing is important here. When you play it, you gain the bonus amber first, and then you do the play effect. And if you at that point break even, then it fizzles. And then we have Furtive Investors, card that I'm not excited about, but there was some fun stuff that happened with it at the Vault Tour Finals where it actually mattered. So you want this card to come out late. It gains you an amber, a bonus amber, and then its play effect is that if your opponent has more than you gain an amber for each key they have forged. So potentially it's a better, well, it's like Dr. Escotera, but it gives you an extra amber instead of a 4-power creature. I mean, it's okay, but early on it's gonna not do much. Life for a Life is an action that gains you a bonus amber, and then you sacrifice one of your own creatures and you deal 6 to a creature. And this is pretty cool. This is most obviously compared to Pawn Sacrifice, which would do 3 damage each to 2 creatures. This does 6 damage to a creature instead. What do you want to get done? It depends, which is better. But I think it's very good. I'm happy to see it. I like it. And, people don't necessarily realize right off the bat, you might decide to use this to kill one of your own creatures too if it's somehow advantageous to you. Then we have Miasma, which is coming back from Call of the Archons, bonus amber, and your opponent skips forge a key on their next turn. Sometimes really powerful. Nerve Blast, also returning. You steal 1, and if you do, deal 2 damage to a creature. So steal and ping, that's pretty cool. A Sucker Punch is an interesting one. It has a bonus amber. It has alpha, so you have to play this first on your turn before you do anything else. And when you play it, you deal 2 damage to an enemy creature. Notice it can only work on enemy creatures. And if the creature is destroyed by this effect, then you archive Sucker Punch. So it can kind of keep coming back and being useful. Against certain decks where people have a lot of 2-power creatures coming out, this can be pretty awesome. Otherwise, I don't mind just getting the amber, just splashing somebody's armor and tossing it. That's okay too. Getting multiples of these I'm always nervous about because they well, you can't play more than one of them on the same turn. Although I have had it work out. I have a deck with 3 of these, and I did have it work out once where I just had them all come out spaced at different times, and it worked out really nicely. Next up is Swindle. This one is a really powerful effect, but it has Alpha and Omega. So it's the only thing you'd get to do on your turn. You can't even use cards on the turn that you do this. And you steal 3. So that's a powerful effect. You got to look at, okay, what are my options, and is this better than my other options? If so, then go ahead and do it. You can't even discard cards, right? This is it. I haven't seen a deck with more than one of these yet. I don't know whether it's true, and I'm not going to check right now, but it'd be interesting. I'd be sad to have more than one of these, actually. Throwing Stars deals 1 damage to up to 3 creatures, and for each creature destroyed that way, you gain an amber. So it's kind of like an action version of Secret Needle. It's pretty cool. Whistling Darts gains you an amber and then deals 1 damage to each enemy creature. Getting this and the Throwing Stars together can be pretty cool, right? You hit them with the Whistling Darts and then you use the Throwing Stars if they have a lot of 2-power creatures. Yeah, it's not bad at all. All right, and that is it for commons. Let's go on to uncommons now, and we'll start with Bren the Fanatic. This one is interesting. It's 3 power. When you play it, your opponent gains an amber, but when it's destroyed, you steal 3. So kind of an interesting effect there. And it has skirmish. So that's the tricky part, is you can't just run it into things. Now, if they have something with hazardous, then that's a good way to deal with it. If you have things that can do direct damage, that could be useful. One of the things that I think gets overlooked about a card like this, and this applies to an effect like when it's destroyed Steel Bunch, or something like Grenade Snib that'll make them lose some, or a Dust Imp, is that it creates a disincentive for your opponent to board wipe, because especially like this, they know you're going to have trouble getting rid of it, and if they're thinking about wiping the board, they're thinking, well, I can do this, but they'll be able to steal 3 from me. Now, maybe they can time it well, but it creates an interesting dynamic and an interesting set of decisions that I think a lot of people maybe haven't thought through. So you can put people in a bind that way, and that's kind of fun. Little Nif is a 2-power elf thief who has Omega, Deploy, and Elusive. So when you play Little Nif, when you play her, you end your turn. She has Deploy, so you can put her anywhere on your battle line, and Elusive, so hard to kill. And after a neighbor of Little Nif is used to fight, you steal 1, and that's a really neat effect. I think when I first saw this, I thought, oh, the best thing would be to get a creature with skirmish next to this, and then I can, every turn I call that house, I can fight. What I ended up finding out is that a really cool situation is to have a series of creatures lined up next to it that are all the same house that can go impale themselves. And I ended up with a turn like that where I stole 5 on an untamed turn because I just kept running Little Nif's neighbors into the opposing battle line. They would die in the fight, I would steal 1, and then their neighbor would move over and now be Little Nif's new neighbor, and that was crazy. So fun stuff. Merkins is one of my favorite cards in this set, and I feel like I've had a lot of good luck with my Merkins hits. I've also had some cases where I was able to use it post banish to get some really good value. Merkins is 2 power, and his play effect is choose a random card in your opponent's archives or the top card of their deck. and play that card as if it were yours. So now, interestingly, if you get an upgrade, then you get to decide what creature to attach it to, and you get any bonus amber with it. If you get an event or an action, obviously you just resolve it. If you get a creature or an artifact, it's going to interplay under your control, and there's some cool stuff that can happen because of that. So some really neat stuff here. I've had, again, a lot of like really lucky hits off the top of my opponent's archives. A clutch, burn the stockpiles. I think I got a Ronnie Risk Clocks once. And I've also gotten really nice hits out of archives. I was able to win a game at one point by using Merkins to get a creature that I'd put into their archives with Banish the previous turn, and because they had a Grunt Buggy out, it swung the key cost, and it was fantastic. So there's some cool plays that you can get out of Merkins. It's definitely one of my favorite cards in this set, just for the, I don't know, the fun joy, I guess, of getting to use the opponent's card against them. Okay, next up we have Redlock, who is 3 power with Skirmish, and at the end of your turn, if you did not play any creatures this turn, gain 1. It's useful if you take a Swindle turn. Skirmish is fine. He's okay. I don't love him, but he's okay. Then we have Hidden Stash. This is back from Call the Archons. It gains you an amber, and then you archive a card. So basically equivalent to lab work. And that's really strong in this house to be able to archive like that. So I like seeing that. Lights Out, also returning. Bonus amber, and then you return 2 enemy creatures to their owner's hand. This is pretty nice because in Shadows you don't have a lot of board control. You have the damage stuff, but with bigger creatures or things with armor, you might struggle a little more, and this gives you a way to deal with them. Night Forge. This is one of the 2 key cheating cards in Shadows. It has a bonus amber, and if you have not forged a key this turn, you may forge at +4 current cost. So that's 3 worse than key charge. Actually, only 2 worse, I guess, because it gains you 1, and then it's +4 current cost. So it's really only 2 worse than key charge. But you can only use it if you didn't forge already. Oubliette purges a creature with power 3 or lower, also returning. And a lot of those small creatures have powerful effects and are nice to just not have to worry about, so seems pretty good. Perplexing Sophistry has a bonus amber, and then if you have more amber than your opponent, they discard a random card from their hand and you draw a card. That's pretty cool. I don't love the discard a card from your opponent's hand. It's fine. It's not fantastic. Drawing a card can be good. Doing both is great. Gaining an amber and then doing both is great. So I think this is a pretty cool card if you can play it at the right time. Also returning, Too Much to Protect. This is great. This is just a fantastic card. In the worst case, it gains you an amber. In the best case, it knocks your opponent down to 6. And you probably have some other tool in Shadows to steal 1 and keep them from forging. And that's pretty fantastic. Hideaway Hole, gain an amber. It's an artifact. Has a bonus amber, and it has Omni sacrifice it to give all your creatures that you control elusive until the start of your next turn. So this is a nice way, if you know your opponent is set up to do like a big fight turn where they blow up your stuff, and you have a lot of stuff you'd really like to keep out for another turn, this can help if it's already on the board. Skeleton Key is an artifact that has action. A friendly creature captures 1. Not the most powerful ability in the world. Sometimes with elusive, that can be pretty effective. I really like to capture Amber onto like a Ronnie Risk Clocks next to Archimedes or something. That's a pretty cool setup, but pretty simple ability there. Special Delivery is an artifact with a bonus Amber. that has Omni, you sacrifice it and deal 3 damage to a flank creature, and if that damage kills the creature, then you purge the creature. That's pretty cool. Also back from Call of the Archons. Subtle Maul, another one, back. It's an artifact that exhausts to make your opponent discard a random card. Bone Rot Venom is new. It's an upgrade that has a bonus amber, and after the creature it's attached to is used, deal 2 damage to it. And this is another one of these upgrades that you want to play on your opponent's creature. It's a cool little effect. They get, you know, if it's one of the small 2-power strong creatures, they're going to get 1 more use out of it, and then it's going to die. If it's a bigger one, then maybe it'll get pinged. But yeah, pretty cool effect. Dusk Runner is an upgrade that gives a creature Reap, steal 1. That's fantastic. You want to be careful what you put this on. Ideally, you want to put it on something that doesn't want to fight and isn't super powerful, so you're kind of spreading around your opponent's hate for your cards. And this is also returning. Alright, and finally we are on the rares. Start with one that's back, Bullet Eye. And again, only 40% of these are going to be new. Bullet Eye is 2-power with elusive, and when she reaps, you destroy a flank creature. Pretty powerful. Deep No Spy Master is back, 1-power, elusive, and it has an Omni ability. You choose a friendly creature, you may use that creature this turn. So it has an Omni ability that lets you Omni another creature. Pretty cool. Also returning, Mac the Knife. It's elusive, and you may use it as if it belonged to the active house. So effectively Omni, but its ability isn't Omni because that text means you can reap with it or fight with it if that's what's best. It has elusive, but it does have action, deal 1 damage to a creature, and if that damage destroys the creature, gain an amber. Plague Rats is an auto multiples rare. I'm not sure what the floor is, what the minimum number of them you can get in a deck is. I think the lowest I've seen is like 4, and the most I've seen is 7. But it's a 1-power creature with elusive, and when you play it, each non-rat creature is dealt 1 damage for each rat in play. And that resolves after it's in play, so if you play 1, you're going to deal 1 damage to every non-rat creature. If you play your 5th one, you're going to deal 5 damage to each non-rat creature. That's pretty crazy. It's a lot of damage and board control. They don't have like a, you know, crazy effect other than that. They really just have that effect on play. And I haven't actually gotten to play with or against them yet and see them in action. So as far as I know, they don't seem overpowered by any means, but they're exciting, and a lot of people seem excited about them. That's cool. Scally-Caper is a creature that you give to your opponent. So it's 2-power, and it has Skirmish, so this is another like Brend. It's hard to kill it yourself, but it enters play under your opponent's control, and it can be used as if it belonged to any house. So they can get that 2-fight skirmish every turn, but at the end of your turn, you destroy one of its neighbors. So that means on the end of your opponent's turn, they'll have to destroy one of Scowly's neighbors. So it's kind of like a, hey, you have this creature, and you're cursing them with it. Very, very interesting card there. Selwyn is 3-power and back from Coda. And when she fights or reaps, you move an amber from one of your cards to your pool. I don't love this because Shadows just doesn't do that much stealing. We have Skeleton Key in this set, and the last set there was Skeleton Key and Old Bruno, but we're just not doing a lot of capturing, so she has to be with a house that does a lot of capture, like maybe Sanctum, in order for this to really work well. And I don't know, I don't love it. Maybe, I guess, nice if you're matched up against Mars. Snack Lifter, 2 power. When he comes into play, you take control of an enemy artifact. Back from Coda. Heist Knight is a new one. It has alpha, so you have to play it first. And when you play it, you steal 1 for each friendly thief creature. It's like One Last Job from Call the Archons, but instead of purging all your thieves, it just has alpha. So interesting trade-off there. Yeah, and I haven't seen this go off either, but it seems pretty cool. I would probably be most excited to see this in a deck that also had like the Hideaway, although a lot of the thieves have elusive anyway. Key of Darkness. This is the other key cheating card. This one is rare and it's back from Coda. When you play it, you forge a key at +6 current cost, so by default that'll put you at 12. If your opponent has no amber, then it's just +2 instead, which makes it only 1 worse than key charge, but your opponent has to have 0 for that to work out. Lethal Distraction is an action that has a bonus amber, and then you choose a creature, and for the remainder of the turn, whenever it takes damage, it takes an additional 2. It's interesting. It seems like it's most likely to just do 2 damage to it. I'm not totally sure. I mean, there are definitely cases where it can matter, but it seems pretty edge casey. Rigged Lottery seems interesting. I haven't seen it in play yet. Bonus amber, and each player discards the top 5 cards of their deck, which is quite a lot. And for each Shadows card discarded, its owner gains 1 amber. So if you have, you have a Shadows deck, you're probably going to get 1 or 2 in there. Your opponent, if they don't have Shadows, they're going to get none. If they do have Shadows, then maybe they get more. Maybe they get even more than you. So more iffy there. I really like this form of House Hate because Mars has a lot of this, but it's sort of like just anti anything but this house, instead of this one house gets hate. Routine Job is another auto multiples. You're going to get at least 2 if you get 1. When you play it, you steal an amber, and then you steal another amber for each copy of it in your discard pile. Obviously, if you have 3, that's pretty crazy. You're going to get 6 total steal. With 2, you're going to get 3, which is still pretty good. The Sack of Coins has a bonus amber and then deals 1 damage to a creature for each amber in your pool. That seems like a pretty strong effect, especially because in Shadows you're probably going to be able to burst up before you play this and actually kill something with it. Treasure Map is back from Coda, bonus amber, and then it's sort of like Alpha Omega before Alpha and Omega were there. If you haven't played any other cards this turn, you gain 3, so that'd be 4 total. But if that happens, then but after you play it, you can't play cards. You can still use cards. So it's like a lighter version of Alpha Omega, and it's kind of optional. Even if you have, if you do play cards before you play this, you still get the 1 amber. So potentially pretty okay there. Customs Office is back. It's an artifact that makes your opponents pay you an amber in order to play an artifact. Importantly, this isn't stealing, so Vault Keeper doesn't stop it. Guard Disguise is new. It's an artifact that can exhaust to sacrifice itself. Now notice, it sacrifices itself, but it's not Omni. You can only do this on a Shadow's turn. And if your opponent has 3 or fewer amber, you steal 3. That's interesting and different from the Shadows vibe so far, which is taking your opponent's ramping and turning it against them. Though this fills a similar role to Ghostly Hand, where it's like if your opponent has little enough amber, burn them harder and make them sadder. Long Fuse Mines is back, bonus amber, Omni sacrifice it to deal 3 damage to each enemy creature not on a flank. That is like one of Shadow's best options for board control. The Shard of Greed, you've probably seen by now that there's 1 shard in each house. The Shard of Greed exhausts to gain an amber for each friendly shard, so it gives you just a little amber ramp, potentially up to 3, which is the most shards that I know of being in a deck. The Sting is back. I did not get one of these in Call of the Archons, but I did get one in Age of Ascension. So, and I've been enjoying it. It's an artifact that has a bonus amber. It causes you to skip your Forge a Key step, which is a pretty strong negative, but you get all amber spent by your opponent when they're forging keys. And then as an action, you can sacrifice it. So the idea is get it out there, get amber, get a bunch of amber because of it, and then take a turn to sacrifice it and be able to forge after that. There are some cards that like you to have a big amber pool, and this also enables them pretty interestingly. And then the last one we have here, also returning from Call of the Archons, is the Ring of Invisibility, which has a bonus amber. It's an upgrade, and then the creature it's attached to gets Elusive and Skirmish, which is quite interesting to attach that to random creatures. So that's it. Overall, I feel like Shadows in this set has a lot more kind of plink steel, and you know, it doesn't have bait and switch. Bait and switch was errata anyway, and this set really doesn't need it because it has so many other options for steel. It has, yeah, a little more turnabout. I love Merkins, and a little bit, I would say even a little stronger focus on damage pings than before. And it's just a great house. I'm very happy to see Shadows in a deck still. It just makes for some interesting swingy games. I don't think it's oh, you can't have a good deck without Shadows, but I haven't seen a lot of bad Shadows spreads. So that's it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope it helped you or excited you or something, and I hope you have a great day. If you want to see more videos like this, then of course feel free to follow me, and you'll get more stuff. I have 5 more houses to do in this set, and maybe I can get Mark to come back and help me walking through at least some of those. Thanks so much, and keep on forging.